first of all, I'm really pleased to welcome Jenny Watson from Education Scotland, um, who's looking at the curriculum refresh. And Jenny's going to share some of her work on the refreshed narrative on Scotland's curriculum. And in particular, she's going to have a look at outdoor learning through her experience through the four contexts. Jenny, I'll pass to you.
Thanks very much, Mark, and absolutely delighted to be here. It's really reflecting that this time last year was when we launched the refresh narrative of Scotland's curriculum, and in some ways it seems like such a long time ago. In other ways, it just seems like yesterday. But really, the refresh narrative was an opportunity to celebrate in the successes of the curriculum for excellence and build confidence, to look at ways of maximising and developing opportunities to meet the aspirations of learners, to stimulate fresh thinking, and to engage in professional dialogue and curriculum design, to inspire, shape, nurture, and innovate. And really, that's what today is all about, to get together, to collaborate, to work with partners, and to look at how we can stimulate fresh thinking about outdoors. Could I have the next slide, Mark? Thank you. The refresh narrative, it's nothing new. It was very much reflecting on the building blocks of the curriculum for excellence. And one of these, of course, is the four contexts. But in the refresh, it was a visual representation. I think this has really helped people to look at the totality of the curriculum and to realize that these all make up the experiences for the children and young people throughout their time with education. And I also feel it's a great way of looking at how partners contribute to that totality of the curriculum, and a really rich way of looking at how outdoor learning can permeate all four contexts. Next slide, thanks. I was reflecting back on the outdoor learning journey that I led when I was at Middleton Park School. And really, it was a journey that was over 5 years. When I first joined the school as head teacher, there was very little outdoor learning. And really, the first building blocks were very much to build capacity and confidence of the staff. But what really helped with this were a series of big outdoor events. And one of these that we planned very early on when I started at Middleton was a big cycle. And this was an event that involved the whole school and getting on the bikes on one day and having fun and being outdoors. It was very much shaped by the pupils. So they planned the routes for older children, the route up to the moor. They worked out the distances. The children were invited to do laps of the moor so they could work out how far as the school would be travelled. Playground was filled with fun bikes from Adventure Aberdeen so that everyone got a chance to cycle, whether it was on 2 wheels, 3 wheels, a scooter, a penny farthing, a trick bike. The younger children had a shorter cycle, helped by the older pupil and by parents, and they pedalled or they scooted around a much shorter area. And it really was a huge amount of organisation, but we worked really close with partners. And the feedback was overwhelmingly positive from everyone that had taken part. It was a little bit of a day like today, actually. The weather was not kind, but it was safe to go out, so we did. And most of the children came back absolutely plastered with mud and wet and soggy. But the smiles on the faces and from the parents and the staff said it all. In fact, I remember one member of staff who'd been a little bit reluctant at the start said, "Gosh, I can't believe I've been paid to have a day like this. It was so much fun." So really, thinking back on that, it was a huge amount of work for one day, but it very much permeated the four contexts, and it was also a fantastic catalyst for many more events throughout the year that featured around cycling. It really enriched the curriculum. Partnership was a really big part of it, and those partners stayed with us and helped us to organise future smaller events and a whole series of different ways of getting children involved, not just in cycling, but in outdoors. definitely learning across the 4 contexts. But for me, the ethos and life of the school was probably the one that was the most powerful one. There's nothing quite like being outdoors with pupils, with parents, with staff, with partners. You have different conversations. You cement the relationships. We had traffic wardens, we had partners from the community, we had ASDA partners that came along, and to watch them cycling along with the young people and building those relationships was just fantastic to see. So really, I think the 4 contexts is a great way for looking at outdoor learning. I've just given you one example, and actually the big cycle right now would not be a suitable context, with the restraints that we're living in. But my advice would be, with these events, with the outdoor learning, is to start with small steps, but really to look at how these events can be built on, how they can permeate across the 4 contexts, and how they can be built upon year. The big cycle at Middleton Park became a regular feature in the calendar. Parents wanted to know when it was going to happen so they could book days off work. Before and after, you saw parents and families out cycling, enjoying the outdoors and the skills that went with that. So delighted that we're here talking about the 4 contexts, and absolutely thrilled that we've got partners because they've got so much to offer in our quest for making outdoor learning a permanent feature in our school curriculum. So thank you. I shall pass back to Mark.
That's great, Jenny. It's Mary Thompson here, and we're just really delighted to have, as Mark said, Penny and colleagues from the NFOR group. And Penny's going to just say a little bit round about how Heritage Environment and Environment agencies support outdoor learning. And we're really grateful to the NFOR partners and Napoli and Andy for planning and co-presenting today's session. While the speakers are speaking, feel free to listen, but also feel free to pop into the chat box any kind of comments or inspirations that you feel and how you might use some of what you're hearing today within your context. So thanks very much. We'll hand over to Penny now.
Right, hello everyone, and thanks for having us here. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me okay. I'm one of 2 outdoor learning advisors based with Nature Scot, and as it's been said, we were formerly Scottish Natural Heritage, but we're Nature Scot now. And we're one of a number of Scottish Government Environment and Heritage agencies which support outdoor learning in a variety of ways. So we're here as a group because for some time we've been working together to support outdoor learning in a more joined up way. So hopefully that is more effective and useful for you. And so we're going to share some of these opportunities with you today. And you'll spot in this picture a familiar figure, John Swinney. And as case in point, this was Nature Scot demonstrating one of our learning and local green space projects, but we were using the Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh as a fantastic venue for that. So that was a celebration event we held some time ago. So can we have the next slide, please? Well, one way our partners have been working together is we've sort of joined forces to develop this outdoor learning directory, which is a website designed to signpost learning resources, research evidence. Oh, we just go back. Oh, can we just go back one, please? The outdoor learning directory has been developed to signpost resources, learning resources, and along with other news and resources offered by a fantastic network of outdoor learning practitioners across Scotland. Mark, are we able to go back a slide, please? On the outdoor learning directory, you'll see the agencies involved listing along the bottom of the page, and these involve, oh, I think we're whizzing on here. On the outdoor learning directory, you'll see that the other partners involved include Nature Scot, Scottish Forestry, Botanic Gardens Edinburgh, the national parks. Thanks, that's great. Along the bottom there, you'll see the various agencies involved. We've got the national parks, we've got Historic Environment Scotland and more. So there's a few of us here today to talk about what we do. And we really hope that this acts as a one-stop shop to make your life easier in finding the information that you need, because I know it's a bit of a nightmare in terms of outdoor learning. There's so much stuff out there. We're just trying to make that easier for you. It's a work in progress, and we plan further improvements and updates, so do keep checking in on it. And hopefully, I'd really love to get more teacher feedback on this, so that might be a step we're taking in future to get your feedback as well, because you're part of the fantastic network of outdoor learning practitioners that's out there. So basically, outdoor learning is any learning that takes place beyond your school front door. And we're really keen that schools make the most of the different opportunities and places available for learning outdoors. So we think of this as a progression of place-based learning. So if we can have the next slide, please, Mark. Thanks. So this place-based model, we hope is something that can help you think about why, when, and where you take your learning outdoors, and what kind of nature can we find in these different places. And we also hope that you could use this as potentially as an outdoor learning planning school with your colleagues in school. You'll see that it's a kind of pyramid, and we kind of expect that the easiest places for you to access your outdoor learning is in your school grounds and your local green space. So that forms the kind of strong base of your pyramid. And I don't know whether many of you made the Education Scotland webinar a few weeks ago, where the head teacher at Garnet Bank Primary, she gave a great presentation, and she was talking about how one of the learning priorities might be about how pupils can apply skills in new contexts. So using this model, maybe you can think about where your school is. Where's your easiest places for getting outdoors to take your learning outdoors? If your class is just going outdoors once a term to a more distant place, then maybe you're missing the opportunity to develop progressive learning experiences in different contexts. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Mark. So the other way of looking at this place progression is across the 4 contexts to help explore how you're delivering the curriculum through outdoor learning. And so we're going to share a few examples with you from a range of place types. And my colleague Sharon is now going to explore how we can go beyond our school grounds into your local green space. Thanks.
Hi, can everybody hear me? I'll say hello here. Sharon Cunningham, as Penny says, from Nature Scot. I can't see myself, which is a bit disconcerting. So if you don't mind, I'm going to turn my camera off and let you focus on the actual presentation. So yeah, as I say, I'm from Nature Scot. I'm going to focus on the local green space aspects of the progression model, the progression of place this morning. As an organisation, we can help you right the way across the model, as can N4 partners. Nature Scot ourselves have national nature reserves that are generally a bit further afield for most of us, but they all have staff who may be able to help you to plan a visit. They're all open to the public and schools. Some have staff on site that could maybe even help with your actual class visit if you're at that point. And if you want to find out more about national nature reserves, if you visit our website, www.nature.scot, and use the search box to find National Nature Reserve. I'm actually going to skip over this slide because I timed myself this morning and was more than double what I should be. But the resources I'm going to talk to you about this morning, this afternoon rather, will give you an idea about why you might want to learn in local green space, apart from, as Penny said, to give your pupils that progression of place. So if we can skip to the next slide, Mark, please. For some reason, my web address has not quite worked out on this slide. The resource is called Beyond Your Boundary, Easy Steps to Learning in Local Green Space, and the web address is at the top there, beyondyourboundary.scot. It should be, the T's gone down to the next line. If you type that URL in, you've come to this rather dull looking web page. So I just wanted to show you this is what it looks like, this is what it should look like. You're not in the wrong place. The top 2 resources are the sort of main things you'll be interested in. And the bottom 3 are sort of tools that you might use at different points in your learning and local green space journey. So I'm going to focus on the top 2 this afternoon. They were all developed off the back of our Learning and Local Green Space project, which has involved 12 local authorities, multiple partners, 115 schools, all serving the 20% most disadvantaged communities in Scotland. And as I say, we've learned a lot through this project about what works and the different approaches that other schools can be using, and we've built it into this resource that I'm going to share just now. So if we can jump to the next slide, please. So both of the top resources I was talking about have a section about finding your local green space, both have accessing your local green space, and both have using your local green space sections. One more click, Mark. The top resource was the kind of original resource, if you like. It's much more chunky, and it also has a section on why learn in local green space, which is the slide I skipped earlier on. That's got lots of information about the sort of policy context that supports learning in local green space here in Scotland, and some of the research as well about the importance of connecting young people with their local area, the opportunities for repeat visits, hands-on connection with nature and that sort of thing. So if you need that, you can look at that top resource. Also in the top resource, there's a section on improving your local green space and spreading and embedding your local green space. So the top resource was kind of developed as to work a little bit like a web page, so you can jump about it and dip in and out where it suits you. For instance, you might have found a site already. You get learning in local green space. You've found a site. You've negotiated access with the owner or manager. So you might begin with the using your local green space section. Or you might be using your local green space quite a lot, and your head teacher's seen what you're up to and is keen that you try and encourage colleagues to do that too. So you might jump to the spreading and embedding section and find things you need there. The second document, as I said, is a bit shorter, or much shorter rather. It's a bit more linear. It's been developed with a kind of professional learning angle, broken down into sort of 6 steps. As I say, starting with finding your local green space. We created this near the beginning of the COVID outbreak, when we heard that schools were being asked to plan to return, to use the outdoors as much as possible. And we were aware that some schools already have challenges with small school grounds, for instance. And we know a lot of teachers are still lacking in confidence, really, when it comes to leaving the boundaries, going beyond your boundary. So as I say, time is tight today. I've only got time to show you a wee snapshot. So I'm focusing on 2 of the common challenges that we know teachers face when learning in local green space, based on the experiences of these schools that have been involved in our project. If you want to use the chat box to talk about the challenges that you've faced or you feel you may face, or let us know how you've been overcoming the challenges to help others along the way. If you've got any unresolved challenges, perhaps I could chip in later on and help you out, or some Infor colleagues or other participants might have solutions for you there as well. Next slide, please. So we know that one of the first challenges that a teacher might face would be actually finding a green space within walking distance of their school. We know that lots of teachers don't live in the community that their school serves, so that's a big barrier for them. We actually know as well that it's often a perceived barrier, a perception that there's a lack of green space. As I say, we've worked with these 115 schools with partners that serve the 20% most disadvantaged communities, and every single one of them has found a green space within walking distance. There's some tips in the resources to suggest how you might find your local green space, and one of them is to use this green space map for outdoor learning, which is on the screen just now, hopefully. I've put in Linvale Primary School into the search box just as an example. That's one of the schools that's been taking part in the project. It's on the boundary between Weston Bartonshire and Glasgow City. You might be able to see the dotted boundary there. It's just on the left of the image with the sort of mortarboard icon, and the black dots are the school gates. So that shows the sort of access points. The blue-grey shaded area is the tools generated a sort of 5-minute walking distance just to give you an idea. And the purple areas are the green spaces, but actually the space that the school uses is the almost triangular space on the right-hand side of the map there. So they go beyond this 5-minute walk. So you could use this tool for your own school, and once you've found the purple, the green spaces that could come up, you could take a walk with colleagues. One of the other tools on the one of the other slides was an audit tool, which again is sort of tried and tested, been used by other partners and schools. You take that, download it, print it out, or type on it, and take a colleague along and sort of have a bit of a brainstorm while you audit the site. You know, for the education potential or the issues that you might have to address first before bringing pupils there. So hopefully that'd be a useful tool. Next slide, please. So another challenge as well is just sort of knowing about or wanting to have everything in place as much as possible before you go, really. Obviously, you'll have your local authority risk benefit tool to use. You'll know about that, hopefully. If not, contact your SAPO rep in your local authority. They should be able to help. But these are some of the other things that the schools learning in local green space have had to think about, and we don't give you all the answers in the resource, but we encourage you to think about them. You'll need to come up with things that suit your pupils, your site, your school, you know, your location, the age of the pupils, that sort of thing. But as I say, maybe save you a little bit of some thinking time there. Help you all enjoy your time in the green space. Next slide, please. So I thought I would just finish with a slide from some of the South Lanarkshire schools that have been learning in local green space, just highlighting the potential again for addressing the 4 contexts. I really like the one under interdisciplinary learning. I can just imagine the little boy, unfortunately I wasn't there, just delighted that he's so creative. I'm never as creative as that. Yeah, I hope it also helps to sort of bring learning in local green space to life. That was a kind of very, very quick whiz through some of the potential in the Beyond Your Boundary resource. As people have been saying in the chat, it's available in the Wakelet, and Mary's put up the web link so you can actually click on it, because you won't be able to click on the presentation. If anybody thinks it'd be useful to have potentially another webinar looking at the resource in more detail and maybe chatting about some people's bespoke issues, I can see there's a few questions in the chat that I'll hopefully get to later, then let us know. Thank you.
That's great, Shan. Thank you very much for that overview of kind of your green space and how we can use it, and some examples there. That's much appreciated. We're going to move on now, and Sally York from Scottish Forestry is going to share a kind of idea of a woodland progression for us and some resources that are available to use for us across different settings and establishments. So if you've got any kind of thoughts or reflections about how you might use any of the information you've heard today, please type them into the chat pane, and thanks to Natalie and Andy for commenting and posting links as well, much appreciated. So over to you, Sally. Thanks much.
Thanks very much, Mary, and hello everyone. Thank you very much for joining in. What I've done here is to place, sorry, I should say, yeah, I'm Sally York and I'm from Scottish Forestry, that used to be Forestry Commission Scotland. So we're all going through name changes for, I don't know, whatever reason. Anyway, so moving on, what I've tried to do in this table is to bring together the place progression that Penny was talking about and link it to something called the nature progression. That there's a superb poster that Natural Resources Wales do, but it's actually based on research from 2002. And essentially what it says is that in order to actually enjoy and observe and get involved in that, we need to be emotionally connected to the outdoors. We can't go on out and say, right, okay, today we're going to do some maths and da-da-da-da-da, or today we're going to learn about trees and forests, unless there has been that step change where people just appreciate being outdoors. So it comes back to Geddes. Patrick Geddes talked about the heart, hand, and then the head. You have to have the emotional connection before you can start scaffolding on the cognitive connections and then developing those till you get to the point where you can have higher order skills like critical thinking and problem solving. So what I've done is, and the reason that prompted me on this is that often in first and second level with what is a woodland, we're actually there's a lot of folk who do rainforests at that point, but we're doing rainforests without any idea what a tree is, what it does, how it connects to our lives, what Scottish woodlands are like, what my local little patch of woodland is like even, and how that relates to other things. And I think it's that business of starting with what is a tree, exploring the language around that, bark, leaves, roots, the textures, the stories, the music, all that sort of thing. And then building up onto that, so the trees in woodland, what is sustainable forest management, what's happened to the history of Scottish woodlands. We were one of the first to deforest. Our landscape is a very unnatural landscape. We should have more trees in it. Then you can start to scaffold in the more complexities of forests far, far away. Robert Pyle says, what would the extinction of a condor be to a child that doesn't even know what a wren is? And I think we have to remember this in the context of this kind of nature progression, how we're learning about these things outdoors, that we've got to start where the kids are and where ourselves are, to be honest. I've also put in developing the young workforce there, because I think from our perspective, it's really a great opportunity to enable the children and young people see people at work outdoors in a whole raft of different industries and jobs and things. It opens up their ideas to what could be. Mark, can I have the next slide, please? Mark. Oh, fab, thank you. Oh, yes, and Ali has put in a thing here around things like the Celtic rainforest, the Atlantic rainforests there. I mean, they're in their own right under threat as well, but remarkable with respect to biodiversity. So that's that bit about learning what's on our doorstep locally and nationally before you go international. Anyway, resources that you can get. Well, we've produced a range of resources under the auspices of the usually the Outdoor and Woodland Learning Scotland. Now, the literacy, maths and health and wellbeing ones are kind of more generic, and I've then put an example of the subject interdisciplinary ones. Some of them, like the tree measuring and the world beneath our feet, are actually based in a progression. So you can look at what's available for early years, progressing through to fourth level. Things like Wolf Brother, although it's based on the Wolf Brother book, and therefore technically you could argue it's a literacy resource, there's an awful lot of other things in there, from maths to poetry to science. It is a cracking resource. That's only partly because I just love the book series, and if you haven't read them, read them, they're great. So there are the books. So where can you get hold of these kind of resources? These aren't the only ones. There are a raft. Mark, next slide, please. And this is the way in which we produce our learning material through the Outdoor and Woodland Learning Scotland website. And I've put things in there. It's connected to the outdoor learning one as well. And you can access all the resources. You can also network locally with your local group. Now, these local groups are made up of a range of people involved in education. And what's lovely is we've got an awful lot of teachers and practitioners in them now. The Facebook page is great for sharing ideas and resources and asking questions. And some of the groups have their own group pages too. The training events are a bit stalled, but again, I mean, the ingenuity going on to try and make some of these things happen. So the North East Owl group has managed to deliver training with people, properly with people, between Aberdeen City and the Shire local authorities. So, you know, it can be done. And all I can say is just try it. Get out there and get out into the outdoors. Ideally, if there's a tree or a patch of woodland around there, that just adds to the flavour. Thanks very much.
That's great. Sally, thank you so much. Just that inspirational message there. And definitely you are encouraging us all to go beyond our four walls today. Not only are we having a tour of the resources and possibilities on offer, but we're also having a tour of Scotland. And I'm going to invite Ali Cush from Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park to share with us this afternoon a really interesting project round about the red squirrels. So over to you, Ali. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mary. Good afternoon, everyone. I've just introduced myself and then I'll turn my camera off so that you don't have to look at my face and you can look at the presentation instead. So I'm the Education and Inclusion Advisor at Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park. So I'm going to just chat to you today about a red squirrel roadshow that we did in partnership with Saving Scotland's Red Squirrels. Next slide, please. Our native red squirrels are classed as endangered, and they're a flagship species for the national park. And these are gauges of natural health and are representative of key threatened habitats in the national park. Our partner on this project is Saving Scotland's Red Squirrels. And thanks to the work of the project and many partners across the national park, the squirrel population is actually expanding, and they're now found in the vicinity of the majority of the primary schools in the national park. Next slide, please. After the project in 2018 was really in partnership with the project officer, Marianne Collis. We decided to offer this Red Squirrel Roadshow. We wanted to raise awareness of the iconic red squirrel by engaging with the primary schools in the national park. We delivered it in September because that was the run-up to Red Squirrel Awareness Week, and that's just before squirrel activity starts to quieten down in the winter months. Squirrels don't hibernate, but their activity definitely slows down as they don't like the bad weather. We offered 2 interactive sessions to the schools that were participating in this, and that covered red squirrel ecology, the threats to the squirrels and their conservation. Next slide, please. After our initial visits to schools to introduce the project, we supported each school to continue the learning about and helping their local squirrel populations by providing a feeder box and seed mix. So that was for the school to keep, and we loaned them a camera trap. So that basically what they did was they installed these feeder boxes in the school grounds, and the pupils picked the locations for this, which was really important. So they took ownership of them. The pupils decided where the cameras were going to go so that they could record as many visitors to their new feeder boxes as possible. And then the pupils looked at the cameras daily to see if they'd actually captured any wildlife recordings. Next slide, please. So we were able to support 9 local primary schools in this project in the national park. And we either targeted their upper primary school, or if it was a really small rural school, we decided that we would just support the entire school. We didn't want to leave anybody out. Some of the schools were doing this as part of their John Muir Award, so their activity was to discover, explore and help to conserve red squirrels in the national park. Overall, Marianne really wanted to raise awareness about the Red Squirrel Sightings Project in the National Park so that she could get an increase in the number of sightings recorded from the local communities. And also it was the run-up to Red Squirrel Awareness Week. So there's a Great Scottish Squirrel Survey that runs every year, and this year it's on the 21st to the 27th of September. So there's lots of activity and resources and so on that you can get involved in this. Next slide, please. So this project was truly interdisciplinary. It was really a focus was a STEM project, but you can see it covered lots of different curricular areas. It was mainly citizen science because we were looking at updating the red squirrel sightings, so getting young people to record the red squirrels. But also they were learning about invasive species, and in Scotland the grey squirrel is the invasive non-native species. They were learning about the importance of healthy habitats for the whole of the nature visiting there, but also in this picture you can see them using handheld microscopes, and that was actually so they could identify the difference between red and grey hair samples. Sometimes that's the only way you can tell the difference in populations. But you can see it covered lots of other things, including ICT. Obviously uploading and using the video cameras was key to the success of this project, and some of the pupils were actually helping the teachers to do that with that technology. Next slide, please. As you can see from the examples of the pupils' work, there was examples of personal writing, and they did some amazing artwork. We took them outside, they did some natural art outside with found natural materials, they did mosaics, and the picture in the middle, this is blown art, which I'd never come across before, but this is an absolutely fantastic blown art picture of a red squirrel. So all these were used as part of school displays so that the whole school community could see the projects that were happening. Next slide, please. And here we can see an example of how the schools were able to share the success and celebrate the work that the young people had been doing. The left hand is a tweet from Aberfoyle Primary School, sorry, I couldn't say that there. And they actually managed to capture video footage of red squirrels visiting their feeder box. And to the right, here's an image of some of the Calendar primary pupils actually looking to try and identify those hair samples. Next slide, please. So the evaluation of the project was really important to us. We wanted to capture feedback from teachers. And part of that really demonstrated how teachers had incorporated the project into the class topics for that term. And it also showed us how the children were actively involved in their learning, thinking about ways that they could further protect the squirrels in their local communities, which was really important. Next slide, please. So although this project was aimed at primary schools, we have lots of resources for older pupils as well on this topic. There's case studies available on our website that support National 4, 5 and higher. There's videos to watch. We have sightings, maps and spatial data available, and lots of opportunities for practical conservation and volunteering in the National Park as well. Next slide, please. So there's many great places to visit and see red squirrels in the National Park with trails and wildlife hides. We have a visitor centre at Balmaha. It's not actually open at the moment, it's closed for refurbishment. But there's a red squirrel trail there through the woods at East Loch Lomond. In Aberfoyle, Forestry and Land Scotland, they have a visitor centre called The Lodge, and they have a viewing hide where they feed the squirrels. Benmore Botanic Gardens over in Argyll, but obviously the forest parks and habitats across the area. And the red squirrels can be found across Scotland. Obviously, the greys are more likely to be in the kind of central belt areas, but really they truly are recovering. Next slide, please. So there's lots of ways that the National Park can support your school, including we offering free outdoor learning through our ranger service. So that's for visits to the National Park. We have a travel grant as well, and that includes support for active travel, great partnership with the John Muir Award team there, resources on our website. So if you would like more information, there's my contact details, but scottishsquirrels.org.uk is where you'll find lots of great ideas for activities and resources to help learn about this iconic squirrel. Okay, that's all for me. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks very much, Ali. And we'll go on our final tour of Scotland here, and we will pass over to Suzanne Hermiston, who's from the Royal Botanic Gardens, Edinburgh. And there's been a couple of comments in the chat round about kind of COVID restrictions and some of the local authorities' approaches to this and what SAPO are doing that. So we'll maybe just before the transition, we'll invite Natalie just to say a wee word about that, and then we'll move on to the next part. Okay, so over to you, Suzanne. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mary. So, afternoon, everyone. My name's Suzanne Hermiston. I'm the Head of Education at the Royal Botanic Gardens, Edinburgh, and delighted to have this opportunity this afternoon to speak to you all. At the Royal Botanic Gardens, we're fortunate to have the world on our doorstep, and although we can equally look at the local biodiversity and the national flora of Scotland, RBG's huge advantage is the ability to deliver learning opportunities within a global context. We pride ourselves, for example, on being able to visit the world from within Edinburgh. And we do this in our glasshouses by discussing rainforests and comparing plant diversity from across the globe. In our herbarium, we're able to reference our global research projects. And when we're on site, we can look at growing and producing our own foods and discussing the need to share food globally. Next slide, please. I'm interested to know what everybody thinks of when I say RBG. So what is the first word that comes into your head when I talk about the Royal Botanic Gardens of Edinburgh? Can I just ask people to pop one word in the chat pane, please? Flowers, plants. Ooh, variety. Grey squirrels, that's an interesting one. Trees, flowers, gardening, glasshouses. Brilliant. So this is one of the interesting things for me, is that, you know, people do know us for various things. They think about the plants and the trees, but what they don't always necessarily know is our educational offering. And what we can offer is a range of experiential, interdisciplinary and cross-curricular outdoor learning programmes, from early years right up through to upper secondary. Can you click on, please, Mark? Now, obviously, things have changed in the last few months for us. So previously, we had a huge programme of activities which related to things such as literacy, numeracy, photography, art, geocaching, orienteering, and that's just to mention a few of the things that we did. We've had to adapt, as everyone has, and we now have dedicated online resources. And we have our own virtual learning environment, which is called Marley's Magical Garden. I'm just going to post the link in the chat pane for you to have a look at. And so what we have now is that we have a range of online resources available that we produced really for use during lockdown, but are actually just as useful now. They're there in different formats. So we have interactive learning resources online, but we also have downloadable activities that you can print off and take outside with you. So we've changed in what we do, but the other thing that people don't know about RBG is that we can support lots and lots of different things. So we can support advanced higher biology projects if anyone's interested in that. And the other few things that people don't know often are that we have a plant collection of 13,500 species across 116 hectares of garden. And on average, we describe 36 new species per year. And that's across our work in over 30 different countries globally. Next slide, please. So now that we find ourselves in this post-COVID world, or well, heading towards post-COVID, hopefully, we can't wait to welcome you back. What we're really looking to explore just now is what you need from us. We have some ideas. We're aware that you need different delivery modes, and we're trying to look at those. We're very fortunate at the Botanics in that we have a lot of experience in online delivery because we have a dedicated online learning team, which is recently sort of converted to support us in school delivery as well. So some of the things we're looking to focus on are things like nature prescribing, so helping you to handle the impact of COVID on you and your pupils. That's really important for us. We're looking at more CLPL in outdoor learning, specifically around maths for early years, investigating plant life cycles and science on your plate, which obviously relates to food production. We're also keen to explore elements of employability, think about how we can support virtual work placements and circular economy projects, and to use plants as a means of explaining diversity and think about how we can connect with classrooms across the globe through our field projects. So at present, we're in a kind of strange situation. We are currently piloting next week with a couple of local schools how we can start to bring schools back on site in terms of self-guided visits. Someone mentioned about the different ways that local authorities are approaching this, and we've sort of had advice that some local authorities don't want interaction from externals. So at present, we're looking just to allow self-guided access to the gardens. However, hopefully, from early 2021, we'll be looking at offering 2 specific sessions which will be led by our education officers, and that will be looking at exploring the garden using your senses and finding lost words at the garden. So some of you will be scattered across the country. We do have learning opportunities at all of our gardens, and the online resources that we have are not specific to any one garden, so you can use them anywhere from your back garden into one of our own gardens, whether it's Benmore, Logan, Doik or in Edinburgh. So I hope that's given you a kind of flavour of what we can do at the Botanics. It's not always the most obvious place to think of when you're thinking about a visit, but it is an amazing space, and we're really keen to work with you to explore the future of nature learning and how we do that at the Botanics. Thank you very much.
That's great, Suzanne. Thank you so much for sharing that, and to all of the Infor partners for sharing just some of the support available to schools and establishments across Scotland to help take outdoor learning across the 4 contexts for learning. Just before, as Mark's getting ready for the next practical element, which I know you're really excited about, I wonder if Natalie might like to share just a little bit about some of SAPO's work. So over to you, Natalie.
Thanks, Mary. So SAPO is a Scottish Advisory Panel for Outdoor Learning or Outdoor Education, and they have a representative in every local authority that meets 3 or 4 times a year, but is doing an awful lot more emailing and webinars since COVID, as you can imagine. And what that they try to do is basically support practitioners, teachers, and really good high quality outdoor learning across the whole of Scotland, and try and help each other out in terms of supports and resources, etc. Just now they had conducted a survey to find out what the picture was actually on the ground within all the different authorities. So the guidance on what we should be doing in terms of engaging in outdoor spaces, we know that the transmission rates is dramatically reduced when outdoors. So the government was very keen to promote that and encourage people to be using outdoor spaces to learn in. But what different authorities have done is quite diverse, and some authorities have completely stopped off-site visits out of school grounds. Other ones are encouraging it. Other ones are saying no visitors, etc., etc. All have very different pictures. So we've pulled together a survey, and that went out just last week, and the closing date is actually this evening at 5 o'clock. I know that at the moment of the 32 authorities, about 65% have responded, but we've since sent them all another email saying, look, this is really important that we have that full picture. The plan is that information will be gathered and dealt with tomorrow. We've got a full team meeting, and then we'll have that live on a page, hopefully by the end of the week. So I put the link in earlier on, and it's SAPO, the web links there. And if you go on that site, it will be able to get some advice and guidance. If there isn't advice and guidance for your authority, there is representative, as I say, with an email address for every authority in Scotland. So you can just click on that link, and they should be able to give you a guidance. And what I would say is check before you go out, because, as I say, there is many variances, and every local authority will have their own version of that. Hopefully that's answered some of those questions.
That's great. Thanks very much, Natalie. So if you've got any kind of other comments or questions, feel free to post them into the chat, and we'll try and pick them up and, as I say, share them towards the end. So we're going to hand over to Mark now, and he's got a kind of practical, you've no idea how many gadgets he's got set up to make this work. So I hope you've had your thinking caps on, and we've got lots of ideas round about autumn and how we could use that in our setting with the young people, families, etc. that we work with. So Mark, over to you.
That's been a great webinar so far. I'm appreciating that actually the time's probably a little bit against us. So I'm going to ask everyone who's presented today and our other colleagues, Andy and Natalie, just to help me here by just shouting stuff out in the chat box. Unfortunately, the chat box is over on the other side. So yeah, if you guys could shout out some ideas then. So let's start out, if we think about the context, we're thinking about autumn here. What would be the opportunities for personal development that we could align with autumn? So if you can speak out, because that's going to be quicker.
I would suggest some of the awards, so things like the RSPB Wildlife Award that Ian mentioned earlier on. That might be a really nice one. We've also got the Tree Awards, and what about some of the Growing Awards from RHS?
You've got the tree planting as well, which is an autumnal thing, and National Tree Week and Seed Gathering Week.
Noticing from the chat pane, we've got John Muir Award and Heritage Heroes.
John Muir.
In terms
just
of,
we're doing this because we all got a bit tired of digital only. So,
in terms of tree planting, acorns are very satisfying to plant. Woodland Trust usually offers free trees for schools and at batches during the year. So if you want to do some tree planting in your school grounds, because autumn is a good time to be planting, as Sally says.
Yeah, and not for trees and bushes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to ask us to jump across, and for all the participants in the webinar, if you guys want to just share across in the chats any idea, we'll be able to capture that afterwards, because that's all captured for us. So let's have a wee look at interdisciplinary learning, which I didn't want to fully write out, as you can see there. So any ideas thinking about autumn? Mari,
Lots of STEM activities in terms of seeing what wildlife does. I'm thinking about if you're talking on the squirrel theme, watching where squirrels bury nuts or birds like jays bury nuts. So a lot of school grounds work there, and you could be mapping that in your school ground and measuring.
Like that sounds great.
Okay, Mark, from the chat, we've got some kind of idea of planting, harvesting, and we've got migration as a possibility.
Okay, what are we thinking about that? Whether curricular areas, or what do we think? Where would they sort of go? Where would migration go, for instance?
Migration.
Is that an IDL project?
Yep,
migration as an IDL could be a real mixture. We could have some social studies in there in terms of the places. We could also have some health and well-being. I'm thinking about actually just how we feel about different seasons and what happens. Do we have migration? Things like that.
Yeah.
If you've got tarmac in your school grounds, that's great for using chalk. So you could map out parts of the world and draw chalk lines on where birds that you see locally might be traveling to in the winter, and measure those distances.
Measurement again with maths.
Okay.
We've got senses being suggested, and obviously it kind of depends on your context. Are you inner city or more rural? So that's
Here's an interesting one for me. So that ethos and life of the school as a community, and I think Jenny gave some really strong examples of that with the cycle day. So what does Autumn think? So for me, something about that is, so I love growing food, love growing vegetables. Obviously, autumn's a time of harvest. Is that the kind of thing that I could share with a wider community across either the school or perhaps a sheltered housing or something like that?
Ian suggested in the chat some lovely suggestions around engaging in local green space and how you can access it and use it to enrich the learning, and providing a fitting context for developing the irresistible curriculum, protecting biodiversity, understanding its value and importance to the local community, and how it's been affected by climate change. It actually ticks all the boxes. It's a bit of ethos and life, but also curriculum areas covered there, and IDL. It's beautiful. Nice example.
I think as well from today's webinar, we've seen there's a load of support out there as well for us to engage with that in your local green space. There are people, there's experts out there who can really help us to engage with that, whether it's actually just finding where it is. Any other ideas about ethos in life?
I think just that the cooking, not just sharing the harvest, but kind of cooking the harvest, and kind of link with sort of STEM and health and food technology, and also even just like the opportunities for kind of coming around a campfire and sharing stories. At this kind of time of year, obviously we've got kind of some seasonal opportunities there too.
Yeah. We've had some nice examples of schools growing veg and then taking it to local care homes or elderly people in the community. Really nice link up.
Watch my handwriting get worse and worse. Finally, I'm going to ask us to think of some of the links that we have, maybe with curricular areas and subjects. Because we've got the obvious ones. We've got science, we've got some social studies, geography, etc. But are there ideas that you can maybe have, to link some ideas with Autumn here? I'm now on the right side, so I can see.
Yep, Mark, we've got some kind of den building for technology coming through, some bar charts with leaves coming through, collage, transient art coming through.
Symmetry, I think was mentioned there. The leaves, autumn leaf shapes, symmetries, lines of symmetry. That's a nice one. Maths. Poetry. That's some nice ones, Jay Hutton. Numeracy, creating sticks.
I'd say autumn's the most poetic month, but maybe that's just me. Health and well-being. Okay.
Yeah,
I think that's great. Really appreciate everyone taking part in our little experiment there. That looks good. So we'll capture
a couple of other. We'll be able to capture the comments here as well, because we've got some stuff like climate change, biodiversity, religious, moral, philosophical festivals, weight and measurement, life cycles. Loads of brilliant ideas. So, folks, if you're still able to type them in, chat them, we'll capture them all, and we'll put this together and be able to share that back with you.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. I will just turn this one off now.
So we're almost at the end, and that's us at 4:30. We just wanted to really just to get a sense from yourselves as to what would you like some more of in terms of kind of webinars. What would you like to be able to do with colleagues, and how would you like to take learning forward for yourselves across the 4 contexts for learning and beyond. So really happy for you to post the ideas into the chat box. Just wanted to say thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. And we have, well, Mark's be able to present to us now.
If you can hear me, so I'd just like to say thanks. So to all the people who presented today, all our partners, that's been great. I'd also like to thank Natalie and Andy, who have really helped with the chat, etc. Just want to draw your attention to the Outdoor Learning for Sustainability Wakelet. So you can have a look at that. A lot of what's been talked about today, you'll be able to find the links there. Obviously, we'll have the presentation available on YouTube, but if you want to have a wee look at that, it's been a really good experience, a really good webinar, I feel, and I think we've all learned something. I know I have. Don't rely on certain tech, but never mind. And the last thing to say is, if you could fill out the Outdoor Learning webinar, it would be really useful for us to know what you would like next, what worked for you and what hasn't worked for you. And again, we're really keen on having a program running throughout the year so that we can collaborate and we can learn from each other about taking learning outdoors. So I'm sure Mary will posted that link into the chat there. So if you could fill that in for us, that would be great. So finally, I'd just like to thank you all for joining us today, and I'm looking forward to hopefully hearing from some of you in the future. We'll still be about here if there's any questions you have for the chat box, so stick them in there, and thanks again.